Imagine you are on a ship that will take you far away. You know where you hope the ship will take you, but you can't know for sure. Yet, it doesn't matter, because we will be together. Wake up! Today I'm here to talk about 1899, a new sci-fi mystery show from Baran, Odar and Janje Friese, the creators of arguably the best show on Netflix called Dark. The story takes us aboard a transatlantic ship Kerberos en route to New York, carrying international passengers and their secrets. When Kerberos discovers a missing migrant ship called Prometheus in the open sea, the mystery begins to unfold. The voyage takes an unexpected turn and passengers start to question everything. Sounds interesting, right? Let me give you my overall review of Season 1 and later I will get into the spoilers, the ending, and the theories for Season 2. So stay tuned. So my general impression of Season 1 is, oh my god, this show is so good. Instantly one of my favorites because I can't ever pass up a good sci-fi mystery show. However, this show is not without its flaws, which for me were not that significant. But let's start with the good things. First of all, how amazing is that the show is operating in 8 different languages. Besides English and German, we have Polish, Cantonese, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Danish. I loved the interaction between characters who did not understand each other's languages. There are a lot of monologue scenes where a character would do a confessional or pour out their soul in their native language, knowing full well the other character won't understand a single word. Secondly, what's great about the show is the idea or the mystery itself. Janje is a genius writer who constructs great puzzles, and 1899 is no exception. The amount of detail in the set design alone, the hidden meaning in messages, the clues and strange objects, everything adds up to an immersive and captivating journey through 8 episodes. Although the concept doesn't feel as novel and groundbreaking as the concept behind Dark, it is still a solid addition to the sci-fi genre. It is so difficult to praise this kind of show without getting into spoilers, so I'll stop here and I'll share my criticism of the show instead. And these 2 criticisms are rooted in the comparison with Dark, which is already kind of wrong, but I can't help myself. Dark was a complicated web of characters, and one doesn't exist without the other, sometimes literally. And you feel for them so deeply and you get so emotionally invested that every twist and turn is like a knife through a heart. But watching 1899, I found myself not caring about most of them. They are there and I sympathize with them. However, experiencing most of them was kinda underwhelming. I think the reason why some characters turned out to be a bit two-dimensional is a lack of information on them, which is normal for a mystery show. I'm sure they will be fleshed out more in Season 2. So another critique or complaint or whatever you want to call it is giving away the intrigue too early. Sometimes the visuals and the details were a bit on the nose, and most viewers, including me, were correctly guessing what was going on since episode 1. By the end of episode 2, any attentive viewer knew exactly what was happening. The creators have already served the answer to the audience, but not to the characters, so we were still exposed to additional clues and puzzles for them to figure it out. For comparison, I had to watch Dark twice initially to fully grasp what I was watching. Dark also revealed the mystery in episode 2 or 3, but the amount of WTF moments that you had to connect and for your brain to process the answers was insane. For all that, Dark is a very niche show, and I know a lot of people who struggled with it. 1899 is more Netflix in that sense, it's more mainstream, I would say, which certainly doesn't make it worse than Dark, or a bad show in general. I had an amazing watching experience, and I definitely will be waiting for Season 2. I'm dying to get the answers to all the questions that are hanging in the air, so for now we will have to indulge in speculation and theories. Speaking of questions and answers, let's talk about that ending. So it is revealed that our characters are in a simulation.
How is that possible?
In episode 8, all the passengers are awake in the archive, which is a place where previous simulations are stored after they've run their 8 days. And Mora is revealed to be the creator of this prison. All of the passengers are imprisoned on the ship without being able to see the prison. The reason why all the passengers have gathered on the Kerberos is to run away from something traumatic that has happened to them in the past. Everyone has secrets, which are slowly revealed for some of the characters throughout the show. But as we learn that they are not in the real world, how reliable or authentic are their memories and backstories? I believe Daniel mentioned something about Mora having false memories, which I guess were planted into her brain before she got plugged in. The same could go for the rest of the passengers. Their secrets, no matter how big they are, could be lies. And Mora has the biggest secret. She experienced the loss of her child, and I assume she tried to suppress it in any way possible. She locked those memories away somewhere deep in the recess of her mind, and that truth that she once knew but chose to forget is haunting her until she breaks free. Mora's father says that she tried to get rid of the pain, but instead she created more pain. It's almost like the simulation was designed for Mora and the passengers to process their traumas and their grief and possibly let it go. Henry, Mora's father, is observing everyone to evaluate the decisions that they make in the simulation, almost hoping for a different outcome. And yet he says every time the passengers make the same mistake and die. Turns out he's not the villain, but a victim like the rest who was only placed into the simulation to make sure it ran smoothly. The boy is Mora's son, and most probably he is not real. Mora's father reveals that the reason they're all in a simulation is that Mora wanted to keep her son from dying. Apparently, she and Daniel built the simulation to preserve the memory of their son, but it's not confirmed. And you cannot convince me that the boy is alive. His room is in a grave, for God's sake. Everything is alluding to his death. Speaking of Daniel, I don't exactly trust him, although he's one of my favorite characters. If Daniel and Mora built the simulation for their son, why have his room in the grave? Why have a constant reminder that he is dead? In the memory that is shown to Elliot, Mora injects him with a black substance that makes one forget, saying it's the only way they can be together. It could be a false memory, but if the objects in the simulation are just manifestations of codes, I presume the black substance is like a reset button. Maybe Elliot realized that he's not real, and Mora decided to wipe his memory and reset him? Because I'm pretty sure Elliot is a product of a simulation. He's even marked with an inverted triangle tattoo. Also, Mora mentions twice in the show that she had a miscarriage and cannot have children. Either she created Elliot to deal with her grief, or she lost him when he was very young and she wanted to freeze him as a memory in that prison.
Don't be silly. I live with you and Daddy forever.
Let's talk about Daniel. He is the co-creator of the simulation and a little software engineer. He was engineering something all the time with his little click device. Daniel knows his way around pretty well with all the ins and outs of the simulation program. I have a suspicion that Daniel isn't who he says he is. He claims to be Mora's husband, yet he never fully gained her trust. When Daniel realized that Mora went down to his shaft, he got very nervous, almost panicked. Down there, Mora found a bunch of staged-looking photos of them with Elliot. I mean, why do they all wear the same clothes in each photo? Not to mention period clothes. She kept saying she didn't feel like she had a son, and even after kissing Daniel, it didn't convince her. On the contrary, she got a flashback of a brain with a syringe and her walking down the corridor with a hammer, and immediately went on to the conclusion that he's not her real husband. Only then he reveals that it's a simulation, but did he just do it to gain her trust? In the last episode, he's recoding the entire simulation while spreading the black crystals, which are like virus that is meant to destroy the simulation entirely. With his help, Mora can break free of Kerberos and spawn at the level 0 of their creation for her to be able to wake up to the real world. Daniel is being super vague about why Mora doesn't remember anything or why she's there in the first place. He's successfully dodging answering any questions, and instead he is pointing a finger at Mora's brother Kieran, who apparently took over the entire Project Prometheus to keep Mora, their father, and a bunch of strangers in a simulation. I just wonder how trustworthy Daniel is. For all we know, he could be the villain that turned remorseful and wanted to undo his bad deeds. Maybe he did this to Mora. In episode 7, Daniel and Mora have a discussion along the lines of one's whole reality is actually inside one's mind. And he says,
"It's all there. You, me, this. Inside your brain. Forever."
Since Mora created the prison for her son to keep him, I believe that she could have also created Daniel. His name is Daniel Solace, which we all know means comfort or consolation. It's interesting that the memories of them that Daniel has are in the hospital in the first ever simulation they have created. Their home away from home, as he called it. Neither he nor Elliot was on a spaceship when Mora woke up. It's like Daniel and Elliot only exist in that mental hospital.
You're shutting it down. But you were right. We've never got this far before. It's not lost.
Everything began with that mental hospital. Mora's father built the asylum for her mother to study her brain. Mora shares with Ike that her mother suffered from a memory loss and a decline in cognitive abilities. So could Mora have a similar condition? Could she forget that she has a son and a husband?
But I do know that my father did something to my memory. In that building.
Or she could have been a doctor in that hospital performing experiments on the brain until something happened, and she became a patient herself and got locked up. On ground zero of the simulation and in Daniel's memories, she's always wearing a hospital gown, which seems to be her default attire on those levels. Maybe Daniel made her forget. He did say in the episode 6 that "I'm not going to leave you again." So did he fuck up? I'm just speculating here at this point, so let me know your theories on it in the comments. In the meantime, let's talk about Ike. I think he's the second most intriguing character after Daniel. He and Mora are instantly drawn to each other. We could clearly see his crazy chemistry with her.
This is crazy.
I would even go further and say that she has more chemistry with Ike than with her supposed husband, which makes me question her and Daniel's relationship. As I mentioned before, it seems like their relationship only existed in a simulation. Besides, when Mora woke up in a spaceship, Daniel was nowhere to be found. But who is right there in the pod right next to her? Yes, it's Ike. Could he be her actual husband and she was made to forget? If Ike was a patient in the hospital, maybe they bonded over trauma of losing their children and became romantically involved. Plus, the tension between Ike and Daniel kinda hints at that. Daniel behaves like he despises the man, calling him a madman and always giving him angry stares. I bet Daniel knows much more than he lets on about the passengers in general and how they're all connected. And if my theory about Ike and Mora being romantically involved is correct, Daniel for sure knows about it. Also, did you notice that Daniel has a scar from a wedding band on his ring finger? I wonder why. So many questions, so few answers. Another big fat question is, who the hell is Kieran? Is he Mora's brother, or is he an evil AI machine? His letter to Mora is the initiating event of the entire simulation. It pushes Mora to uncover the truth. Kieran also sent her the medallion that turned out to be the key to escaping the simulation. That is not villain behavior, if you ask me. Unless it was not Mora's brother who sent the letter, but Mora herself. I know, it's getting too complicated even for me. Let me explain. The envelope arrived for many passengers, and the contents of the letter were different for everyone. I assume in those letters, the passengers received a piece of information about their loved ones, which emotionally triggers the memories and trauma they have suppressed. I highly doubt that Kieran has designed all of this. I don't think he's the villain. Plus, remember Mora's father's speech about being an avoider or a seeker?
We're born into this world either a seeker or an avoider.
He said Mora was born a seeker and Kieran was born an avoider. So Kieran prefers ignorance, which is bliss, right? Maybe he's like Cypher from the Matrix that despised reality and wished he had chosen the blue pill instead. I think he's just an executor of someone else's wishes. Perhaps Henry's? I'm more curious about who he is on the actual ship, and I suspect it could be the first mate, the captain's right hand. Hear me out. He is aware of the simulation, he has his own device, he gets orders directly from Henry, and he's also ginger! Okay, that was a joke. No, but seriously, Kieran could be one of the passengers. Although the first mate certainly doesn't look like Kieran. Not that I would know. But the name means Little Dark One, which hints at someone more sinister, I guess. When Mora wakes up in a spaceship and exits her pod, there is another empty one by the Illuminator. Could that mean that her brother woke up ahead of her to set everything up? When Kieran is communicating with Mora through a computer, he welcomes her to his reality and reveals that Prometheus is on a survival mission. So we're led to believe that she finally awoke to what could be considered the real world. But is it reality or is it a construct of one?
This isn't real.
What is real?
The show introduces Plato's allegory of the cave that ruminates on the nature of belief versus knowledge. So how would she know what is real or not?
How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
My theory is that the spaceship is not real. Why do I think so? I think it's worth taking a look at the song for the opening credits. It's a cover for White Rabbit, a song about Alice in Wonderland and curiosity. Assuming that it has a direct correlation with the events of the show, and Mora is our Alice chasing the truth, I believe there is a clue there. Tumbling down a rabbit hole resembles a descent rather than an ascent into reality, which could mean that the spaceship is another deeper level of the simulation and not actual reality. I'm willing to guess that the creators are planning to confuse us and lead us through several levels of the simulation before we get to the truth. Like in Inception, they had a dream within a dream within a dream. I guess we will find out next season. But if the reality is that the planet Earth is uninhabitable anymore, and say the simulation was designed to either keep people oblivious to the truth, like in the Matrix, or it was constructed to teach passengers something that will help them survive, like letting go of their emotion, why set the simulation 200 years in the past? Or if Mora did indeed orchestrate the whole thing, why would she place herself in a time period where women could not be doctors, or wear pants for that matter? It seems to me that we're missing a level that is set in the present time. If Project Kerberos is destroyed and the simulation set in 1899 doesn't exist anymore, the remaining passengers must spawn somewhere else, like Mora did on Ground Zero. They couldn't just all die, right? Anyways, it is possible that after watching this video you are even more confused about the events of 1899, and I apologize for that. My hope is that you found my thoughts on the show and my theories somewhat helpful and plausible. And if you did, please like, subscribe, push the bell, and all that jazz. Also, let me know your theories in the comments. Okay, bye! No, but seriously, this is my first YouTube video, so don't hate me.